Germany Tomorrow, Dr. Otto Strasser, first published July 1940. Chapter 2, Sections 5 to 6. 5. The New Spirit. No political, social, and economic methods of organization would be of permanent value unless this work were crowned by the deliberate inauguration and cultivation of a new spirit. This spirit of the new Germany must and will be a repudiation of the belief that might and force should regulate the social life of mankind. There must and will be a recognition, both in substance and in form, that voluntary collaboration is to be the basis of human society. Force or voluntary collaboration? That is one of the fundamental matters about which this war is being fought. The answer can only be collaboration, both national and international. In Germany, this new spirit, which was as clearly foreshadowed by Herder as the spirit of William II and Hitler was foreshadowed by Hegel, is most clearly manifested by the passionate repudiation of the idols of the totalitarian state, and by the wholehearted acceptance of Christianity, with its doctrines of the freedom and dignity of the human soul. In defiance of the old Prussian prophets of state hegemony and the modern German advocates of race hegemony, the spirit of the West proclaims the fathership of God and the sonship of man, of all men, and insists upon the dependence of all human institutions, the state not excepted, upon the law of God. We fully recognize that the polarity emperor-pope, state-church, represents the very essence of Europe, which cannot be removed, cannot be dispensed with, without destroying the spirit and the soul of Europe. Freedom of the spirit, of belief, of conscience, are the foundations of Europe, and New Germany would cut itself away from Europe should it fail to proclaim them and to respect them. No less important as fundamentals of this European spirit of the New Germany are the independence of the press, of science, and of art, which must be free from any sort of state interference or social monopolization. Education and the school should have no other aims than to promote the development of free personalities, to foster the growth of frank and great souls. They will best do this by ensuring the unrestricted development of the divine soul, thanks to which each of us, after his kind, and according to his powers, can fulfill himself, and thus sing the praises of the Creator, who fashioned his soul as it is, and no otherwise. The diversity of human beings, the differences among them in quality and value, their varying powers, and their varying tones, are intrinsic. All that education can achieve is to foster the beauty of the tones given out by each soul, so that when sounding together, they can produce the harmony that will guarantee inward and outward peace. 6. Renunciation of Militarism. Such an avowal of a new spirit would be an idle declamation unless it had prompt political consequences. For the new Germany, one of these decisive results would be the renunciation of Prussian militarism both on principle and as a form of organization. Unquestionably, in foreign parts, the idea of Prussia was embodied, not so much in the knowledge of any philosophy she might proclaim, as in an experience of what use she made of her highly developed militarism. Her practice counted for more than her precept, were it only because of the sinister consequences of her practice. In this connection, we must on no account forget to allow for two decisive facts. First of all, that, as a famous historian has said, the 19th century was preeminently the age of imperialism, and therefore manifested a distinctive political structure that was by no means confined to Prussianized Germany. Secondly, that militarism had become a strange epidemic phenomenon, an epidemic malady of the now unbelieving souls of European human beings. No less notable a man than Masaryk, a great statesman and philosopher, whose pupil I may take this opportunity of again declaring myself to be, recognized this phenomenon and described it as follows: modern militarism, especially Prussian militarism, is, considered scientifically and philosophically, A system of objectification, a panic flight on the part of morbid subjectivity and suicidal mania. When Sombart, in the Hegelian manner, extolled German militarism and bragged about fighting in the trenches beside Faust and Zarathustra, he did not realize how he was condemning German and European civilization as drenched with blood. What else is the war-making of modern civilized human beings than a panic flight from the anxieties that arise in the ego of the Superman? That is why, as regards bellicosity, the intellectuals are as bad as, or worse than, the agriculturists and the urban workers. Modern man suffers from a morbid suicidal impulse, from the fatigue and the anxiety that result from his spiritual and moral isolation. Militarism represents the Superman's attempt to escape from this malady, which it really aggravates. In the nation of thinkers and philosophers, there is the largest percentage of suicides. That nation has the most highly developed militarism, and it was mainly responsible for the World War. Masaryk had good reasons for emphasizing this characteristic feature of contemporary Europe, and he pointed out as the crowning sin of Prussia that there the spiritual malady of modern Europeans had been promoted into an ideal and a system. The German people, more subject than any other to this spiritual malady and suffering from it in its worst form, taking to heart Clemenceau's profound remark that the Germans' chief danger is their being in love with death, must do their utmost to seek a cure. A radical and lasting cure can only come from a religious revival, can only come from their giving a new significance to life by internal freedom and devotion to Christianity. Prussian militarism must be overcome, in the spiritual field by a new ideal of life, and in the practical field by a new military organization. In the last section, I mentioned the philosophical aims of education and the school. To these must be added the practical aim of drafting and exercising a new ideal of life. The hysterical heroism which has been adopted as the ideal of life in Hitlerian Germany must be shown to be what it is, must be condemned and rejected as deceptive, as a swindle, as a denial of the truth of life. The joy of life, the song of songs whose strophes must be unfailingly sung to an impoverished, proletarianized, mechanized, and nihilistic mankind, will be the best prophylactic of the epidemic disease of suicidal impulse and militarism. When people have grasped the fact that schools of cookery are much more important than schools of politics, and that the amount of laughter which can be heard is the best indication of the quality of their political and economic institutions, the spirit of militarism will have been definitively overcome. But in practice, it will most promptly be overcome by a change in the prevailing military system. In accordance with my conviction of the diversity of human beings and of their right to self-determination, I hereby declare myself absolutely opposed to universal military service. In the first program of the Black Front, we demanded that army duty in Germany should be a voluntary affair, and this, not least, because thereby would be facilitated the new joint military system of a general European army such as a European federation will need. But if, and this will be one of the main topics of discussion at the coming peace conference, such a joint military system cannot yet be established by the United States of Europe, there will remain for our model the Swiss militia system, which maintains universal service, but wherein the origin of any form of militarism is rendered impracticable by the most carefully devised democratic safeguards. Between the two possibilities, between a small professional army under European control and a militia army after the Swiss model, the new Germany will have to choose as the basis of its future military organization, of course in cooperation with the peace conference. Neither scheme would leave any scope for Prussian militarism.